Hey, it's Nina Madden here, life coach, teacher, healer, and master practitioner of NLP. In this video, I want to share with you how to use the Milton model patterns in hypnosis, what the Milton model patterns are, and why we use them. If you studied the professional coaching with NLP program with me, you know that hypnosis is a really important part of NLP. And by using hypnosis, we can go and access the gateway between the conscious and the unconscious mind. So we can help the client to make changes which are much deeper and more profound than if we're just trying to work on the conscious mind. And Milton Erickson was a really important figure in the development of NLP. He's kind of the grandfather of modern hypnosis. And he used hypnosis and language in a very specific way that helped him to circumvent, let's say, the critical faculty and get really into the unconscious mind by using the sentences and the sentence structures in a certain way. So what we're going to learn is how to create sentences in the kind of way that go underneath the conscious mind sort of gatekeepers and go, conscious mind gatekeepers that go into the unconscious mind so we can make changes. Now, as a therapist and as a hypnotherapist, as an NLP practitioner, we do want to influence our clients because we want to influence them in a positive and empowering way. So we know by studying NLP that everybody has the resources within them to make the changes that they need to make, but not everybody can access them all the time. Obviously, that's why they're coming to you for help. That's why they're seeking help in the first place. And that's why things may not be working the way that they want them to work in certain areas of their lives. So with the hypnosis, we can help our clients to access those resources. So that's really what we want to do. When we talk about hypnosis, there's usually a distinction between two types of different hypnosis. One is a directive approach, and that's when, for example, let's say you've got exam nerves or you're not confident driving a car, you might go to a hypnotherapist who puts you into hypnotic trance and then gives you suggestions. So we'll repeatedly say, I feel confident driving the car. I am confident. I'm not scared of driving the car, and so on. This is a very directive approach, whereas Erickson used what's called a permissive approach. So it's more elegant and it's more of a guidance towards the client finding their own resources. So I'm going to go through the Milton model patterns one by one, and I've got my notes here so I don't forget one. I'm going to give a couple of examples each one, and if you've studied with me, you've had the handout and you have this in your manual as well. So this is just me going through the different patterns. So the first pattern, and if you've studied the meta model, you will recognize many of these. So what we're really doing is we're turning the meta model upside down and we're adding a few different patterns as well. So the first one on the list, they don't have to be in any particular order, is mind reading. So this is when I say, or I know that you have more potential in your unconscious mind than maybe you're giving yourself credit for or always realizing. I know that you can accomplish so much more than what you're doing right now. And I know that you have within you the ability to achieve the dreams that you have and the goals that you set for yourself. And that's great. That's absolutely wonderful. So the first one was a mind read. The second one is a lost performative. It's wonderful. It's great. It's excellent. And because you're watching this video, you will be able to access your unconscious mind easier and more effortless than if you hadn't. And because you're listening to how I'm putting these sentences together, you'll learn how to use them even if you don't know exactly what you know just yet. So that's third one. There was a cause and effect. When I say that because something is happening here, it means that something else is going to happen for you in the future. Because you've chosen to watch this video, you'll go on to change many lives. Now, when we're using the Milton model patterns, what we have to remember is that things do not have to be 100% logical. As you're using these patterns, we are literally circumventing the critical faculty. So all it needs to be is really plausible. And we know for a fact that the cause and effect relationship is very arbitrary anyway. We can connect things in a cause and effect relationship, so almost willy-nilly. And whatever we connect in that way, the mind puts together and believes is so. So when we're using cause and effect, we want to use it to empower people and remember that it just has to be plausible. It doesn't have to be completely logical. So because you're listening to this video, learning these things, you will be able to achieve your dreams easier and with less effort. So the fact that you're spending the time to go through this video means that you're really keen on doing things right. So that's an example of a complex equivalent. And the fact that you're listening and trying to figure it out now means that you're the type of person who's conscientious and you want to do a good job. And that's fantastic. That's great. And I really appreciate that. So complex equivalent is when we take one thing to mean another thing. When we were doing the meta model, we were talking about examples such as, you're staying out late. That means you don't respect me. So there's a connection there, again, which is arbitrary. They don't actually have anything to do with each other, but we're connecting two things in our mind. So that's the complex equivalent. With presuppositions, what we want to do with our hypnosis and our script in general is that we want to presuppose the outcome. So we want to presuppose certain positive things about the client. So if the client comes for us, for example, for an increased confidence and self-belief, we want to presuppose that the client can achieve the things that they want to achieve, that they have a reason to believe in themselves, and they have a reason to be confident. So the presupposition sort of underlies all the other language structures and flows through. So I want to presuppose that you are going to achieve your dreams, that you have the resources you need within you to make the changes that you want to make, that you are more powerful than you know, that you have the ability to bring out your beautiful gifts and to share these gifts with the world, that you are unique and that you are special. So all of these things I want to presuppose, and it depends, of course, upon what exactly the client is seeking help for, with your presuppositions, what you're going to choose to presuppose. But it's always going to be empowering. And with NLP, we're always looking to increase the client's flexibility and increase the client's choice. Very often they come to us because they're stuck in a certain way of doing something, as a behavior pattern, or in a certain way of thinking about something. So they've conceptualized certain things in a certain way and they're stuck in that way. And because they're stuck in that way, they're having issues in their life. So they're not being as happy as they want to be, or they're not being as empowered as they want to be. So with our interventions, we're always looking to increase choice and increase flexibility for our clients. So we're also using a lot of generalizations and universal quantifiers. So everybody knows that people can change because people change all the time. And we all know that change is possible. We've seen it. Everybody has seen change. Everybody's changed. So lots of generalizations, because the generalizations helps the person who is sitting in front of you identify without it being sort of confrontational and targeting them specifically. Like if I was to say to you, I know you can change, well, that's a good presupposition, but if I was to say, you can change, you have changed before, you might say, no, I can't, that's why I'm here. So if I kind of directly approach you, you may feel a sense of resistance. And that's why instead of saying you can change or you can do it, you might say, no, I can't. I'll say people can change. Everybody can change. Everybody can do it in a certain way. So that helps it be less confrontational towards you and you're able to identify with it more. modal operators of possibilities. So people can change. Even though I'm using the same sentence, we have several structures within it. So people can change. It's possible to change. It's possible to achieve your dreams. People do change their lives. In the middle of it, they change their careers. They change their paths all the time. People can do that. So modal operators of possibility. I'm not saying that you have to change or even that you need to, or I'm not saying that you have to achieve your dreams or even try to go and achieve your dreams. I'm just saying that it's possible that you can. So in that sentence there, I've used some modal operators of impossibility and some modal operators of necessity. So when I use impossibility and necessity, I put more pressure on. So when we're doing the meta model and people say, I have to get this promotion, or I need to get this promotion, or I have to lose weight, or I need to lose weight, we're looking at how that sentence structures creates too much pressure and stress on the person. So in order to release that pressure and stress, we open it up and say things like, what would happen if you did it? Because that gives the person a more relaxed position to be in. We can help them by saying you can change the word of I have to get a promotion to I can get a promotion, or I have to lose weight to I can lose weight, because that gives the client more flexibility and it eases that pressure. When we're using the Milton model, you might want to increase the pressure. Sometimes it depends on where you're at in your process with your client and if it's necessary for them. And always when you're releasing pressure, you have to know that you're releasing pressure from the back and that the movement forward has to be possible for the client. If they're not able to move forward because you haven't opened those gateways yet, increasing pressure is just going to cause more stress. So that's why I was doing with my language structure there when I was saying, I'm not saying that you have to achieve your goals or go for your dreams or take risks. I'm not saying that you need to let go of old patterns. I'm just saying that you can. So when I'm saying need to, have to, I'm increasing pressure, but I'm making sure that the forward motion is open. So I'm saying that you can. So that makes the forward motion open, right? The other thing we use is words such as you're going to have insights and understandings and realizations. New insights, new understandings. These come under the category of nominalizations. When we talked about the meta model, we talked about nominalizations in terms of communication, trust. When people take something which is actually a verb, it's something that we do, like we say that we're in a relationship, but actually what we're doing is we're relating to another person, and we do that moment by moment. A relationship's not something that you can be in. It's not an object, right? But we're actually relating. And the nominalization is when we take a verb or a word that is an action word and we actually make it into an object. And this is an issue because if you're trying to look for communication, you're putting communication outside of yourself, which means that you lose power or lose personal empowerment, because communicating is something that you do. When you take it inside of you, you start to be able to affect it. So then you can start to look at, how am I actually communicating? Other words that are nominalizations are things like happiness, trust, relationship. Virginia Satir used to turn those words back and say, how are you relating? How are you trusting? How do you do happiness? Because that makes us look at it as something that we're generating from inside, which of course it is. In the Milton model, we're kind of swapping it around. So we are using it as an object instead. Again, it helps to circumvent the unconscious or the critical faculties and go into the unconscious mind. We use unspecified vague verbs like drifting, thinking, these unspecified vague verbs. and nouns, which are also unspecified vague nouns like people, customers, buildings, all these things, which again basically just comes under the kind of umbrella of generalizations. You know, this is you know how to do this, don't you? Or you have made changes before, haven't you? You could look at following your dreams, couldn't you? Another important part of a popular thing that Milton Erickson often used was tag questions. They create this agreement frame, like within the client. When you use a tag question, the client tends to nod and to say yes. And the more agreement, when you have, this is really what you want to have agreement with the client, because then your message is going in the unconscious. We use lack of referential indexes. So when the person is, so there could be something like, it's a great thing to do it this way. So we understand that something is great, but we don't necessarily know who is considering this to be great. It's much better this way. It's easier to do it this way. Permissive hypnosis is a much better way to make changes. If you've done the meta model, you realize, oh, more, better, less. These words are all about comparative deletions. So what we're doing here is that there is some uncovered, undisclosed part, which we're comparing it to. And because we're giving the client freedom in their mind, they can create this comparison as whatever they might be. So if we say Ericksonian hypnosis is a much better way to help clients make the changes that they want to make. That sentence in itself is saying Milton Erickson is a better way. But we're not actually saying better than what. We're leaving that up to the client. So the client then uses their own reference points to make sense of that sentence. So whatever the client has maybe tried before and failed, whatever the client might have thought about trying but decided they weren't going to try, he or she can now use all of those reference points to compare with saying Milton Erickson's hypnosis is a much better way of making changes. Rather than if you were to say specifically, like let's say you say, Milton Erickson is a much better way to make changes than CBT, the client might then go, oh no, but I think CBT is quite good actually. And you get a resistance again. So by leaving that part out of the sentence completely, the client has complete freedom to come up with the comparisons and the references themselves. This is what makes this so powerful. You may be wondering where all this is going, and I would not be surprised if you are thinking, how on earth am I going to use all of this? And you will have several objections to this, which is something that I'm going to address as well. And that's a great thing that you have, because I think that everything that you take on board and that you use, you need to question first. So what I've done there is I've paced your current experience. So what I've done is I've done a mind read. I'm thinking you probably are wondering how you're going to put all this together. And I'm pacing that experience. So I'm basically matching my words with what you are experiencing at the moment. I could also pace your current experience by saying, you're sitting there watching this video. You are listening to my voice. You're sitting in a chair. You've got your, I could say, if I could see you, I might say you've got a pen and pad, you've got a pen in your hand, but because I can't see you, I wouldn't say that. So that's pacing your physical experience. And whenever I say something that matches your physical experience, it increases rapport, increases your relaxation, and that helps my message to go in undetected, hopefully. So that's pacing your current experience. Now, I'm not saying that you have to realize your full potential straight away. You can wait until you finish this video before you really start realizing just how much potential you've got. Or you could wait for many, many years, even decades, before you realize just how powerful you are. So what I've done there is I've given you a double bind. So that looks like a choice. You know, it looks like you've got a choice, but actually you don't have a choice in this. You will realize what your full potential is. You will realize how powerful you are, but it appears like you've got a choice. So parents of young children are very often very good at this. They'll say, okay, well, you know, they might have trouble with the food. So they'll say, okay, you are going to choose dinner tonight. You can have sausages or you can have meatballs. And the kid thinks like that's really great because they can choose. But actually, they are going to have dinner. You know, other ways of doing it. Do you want a story before your bath or after your bath? The kid thinks they've got choice, but actually they are going to have a bath. So that's a double bind. Conversational postulates are when you make a statement like a kind of a question. I might say, do you have the time? And what I'm really asking you is, what time is it? But I'm making it as a question. Or I might say, could you open your mind to the possibilities? I'm really saying, open your mind to the possibilities, but I'm making it a question. Could you take out the trash? A literal listener might say, yes, I could. But that's not the same as I'm actually going to take out the trash. But really what I'm asking here is, you know, please take out the trash. So that's called a conversational postulate. We also use quotes and extended quotes. So a quote is, you know, this scientific paper research that was published here says that, and then, you know, you quote it. That's a regular quote. An extended quote from an Ericksonian point of view is when you quote someone that's quoting someone else, and what happens in the listener's mind is that it becomes confusing as to who actually said what they said. So I was on a training course in South Africa once, and the lady I was taught by, she was saying she had this guru, and she was saying that people do change their lives all the time. So what I've done there is I've quoted someone who's quoting someone, and we don't actually know who the person was that said people change their lives all the time. So it becomes confusing. So what happens with the conscious mind is that the conscious mind tries to work the thing out. Who was it that said it? But the message that I want to get through is people change their lives all the time, goes through unquestioned. This can be used very, very effectively, and but with caution, obviously, because if you're using it in the wrong place, then people might doubt the validity and the credibility of you. So if you're using it, depends on where you're going to use it. But like in a conversation, from a therapeutic point of view, it can be very helpful. And then we've got, what have we got next? Those were quotes and extended quotes. Ambiguities are also very good. Like a scope ambiguity is where I say something like, speaking to you as someone who understands the value of NLP. That what happens there is we don't really know who knows the value of NLP. Is it me that knows the value of it, or is it you that knows the value of it? But what we are getting across is the value of NLP. So the message is getting across, but the scope there is a little bit confusing. And again, that's all about confusing the conscious mind. And then we have awareness predicates. So I know that you're becoming increasingly aware of just how powerful you are. And as you become increasingly aware of how powerful you are, you realize that you've actually always been this powerful. You didn't know, but now you're starting to notice. And as you notice more and more the powerful and positive impact you're having on other people's lives, you realize that this is something that can just expand and grow. So I'm using words like awareness, realize, notice. These are awareness predicates. They focus your attention on that you are becoming aware of something. And so the message of you being powerful, you having positive impact on other people's lives, again, it goes in without being questioned because the conscious mind is focusing somewhere else. Linkages are the words that we put to put all these sentences together, like and, plus, then, after, so on. Time, we just link them all together. Embedded commands are when I say things like, I know that you know how powerful you are. And I might look at you, I might command in my voice, I might point at you. Those things are embedded commands. And I can see it in your eyes, or I know you've got it in your heart. The question is, have you got the guts for it? These are called organ language, and these are words that just refer to different parts of the body. So that's a rundown of the different the different Milton model patterns, and this is in your manual and it's in your book. Now, the best way to become really powerful using this is to start to write out the patterns. So come up with 5 sentences of a mind read, 5 sentences of a complex equivalent, 5 sentences of a cause and effect, just to get it into the bones, if you like, that you become familiar with it. And then when would you use this type of pattern? Like in what sentences? Well, people use this type of patterns in speeches all the time. A favorite speech I love to quote is Barack Obama's original speech that got him the presidential election. He focused on the word change, and it was full of Milton model patterns. And what happens is, because Milton model is vague, it's artfully vague, it's high on the abstraction. Remember the chunking up and the chunking down that you guys have done. It's high up on the abstraction. So if you take a word like change, you can say that word to 1,000 people, and it doesn't matter if you're left-leaning or right-leaning, you'll go inside and identify within yourself, what does this word change mean for me? And if you come up with your own internal representations. So in speeches, this artfully vague language that people can really identify with and make it really personal, but that doesn't sort of spell it out how it is, it leaves a lot of room for imagination for the own person's internal representations, but guides it in a specific way. This is how you use the Milton model in speeches, for example. Milton model is not very successful in written. It's much more successful spoken. You will also use it in therapy, and you can use it in little bits and pieces. For example, the client might come in and express to you that they're not thinking that they really can change because they've had this problem for a long time. So you can say something like, I know you know that you've wanted to change for a long time, and I know you're aware that change is difficult. But although you know you've done it for such a long time, there is a little part of you that has booked this session and come to this session, and so therefore knows that you're ready to change. So I didn't say that very elegantly, but that's a way how you would use the mind reads, the Milton model, to use to pace the current experience of the client and then to turn it over so that they become connected with that statement. So you could use it, for example, a client might have a limiting belief around making changes. So when they walk into your office, you could do a few Milton model sentences that make them more open to receive the therapeutic benefits of the services that you provide. Or it may that they may have some limiting beliefs around their capacity to achieve their goals. Again, you could do a few Milton model sentences around that. If you're putting the client into a hypnosis and you're doing guided visualizations, you can use Milton model patterns there. So it's really up to you to be creative. And as a great starting exercise, I would practice writing out 5 of each patterns so that it really gets into the bone, so you really become really good at using it. So that's a rundown of the Milton model pattern. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I mentioned, this information is in the manual, and I will put a link to the program below. Okay, so if you have any questions, just get back in touch and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, take care and enjoy your day.